Okay, well, for the sake of time, let's get started. And just to note that this session will be recorded and posted at sanys.org at a later time. But I want to welcome everyone to today's program on maintaining your own mental health wellness during a difficult time. My name is Michelle Hebert, Director of Communications here at SANYS, and I have just a few items before we get started. First of all, we're going to hear a word from our sponsor today, Peaceful Schools.
Hi there, I'm Dr. Laura Lungenheimer, President of Peaceful Schools. For 25 years, we've invested in partnerships to leverage the knowledge and skills of our team with the specialized knowledge and skills of our partner organizations. As our society is striving to address racism, we want to let you know about our partnership with Interfaith Works and their El Hindi Center for Dialogue.
Interfaith Works has long been a leader in Central New York in engaging communities in dialogue and action about race, ethnicity, and equity. Together, we can capture this moment in our nation by helping schools build equitable systems to welcome all students and prepare students to succeed in a diverse society.
We're prepared to do more than just work for you. We're here to work with you.
Okay, thank you, Peaceful Schools. Okay, so now I'd like to introduce Bonnie Tryon, SANYS Mentor Coach Coordinator, who would like to share a few words about the SANYS Mentor Coaching Service. Bonnie?
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you for all of you being here. As I'm going to guess, you're going to hear from our wonderful speaker today about how to maintain your own mental health awareness, what you're doing to keep yourself in good physical and mental shape. Some of the things that we do in our mentor coach program through your association, SANYS, is to help people, our mentees, school leaders like you and our colleagues across the state, is to help them model their own mental well-being. Because as they do, they serve as models for their staff. And through our program also, we provide mentor coaches who can work with, in fact, I see some of them on this session today, a safe, confidential place to work out their problems of practice. And in doing so, they get great tips, ideas, and strategies to work out some of the most challenging things that we're all facing today, that actually get them to a place to prioritize, to manage the time they do have in a wellness environment for themselves, and to realistically check off those things in our to-do box that gives us all that sense of accomplishment. We do that in a couple of different ways. We have one-to-one mentor coaches who work directly with new school leaders and veteran school leaders changing positions. We also work in small groups of 3 to 6 mentees over the course of 10 months. And by the way, everything we do meets SED mentoring requirements for school leaders. And if you're interested in any of this, I'll be glad to talk your ear off at another time, not right now, because Michelle only gave me 2 minutes. So I want to abide by that. I'll put my email address in the chat box, write it down, send me an email, and I'll follow up with you at a later time, along with our brochure, and answer any questions you have. So thanks for letting me speak, and on with our program.
Thank you, Bonnie. All right, to get us started, I'll turn it over to Karen Bronson, SANYS Director of Professional Learning. Karen?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. I hope you're having a pretty good day. I want to thank you for joining our conversation today. I'm sure some of you have been to some of our SANYS Connects and other good things that we've been doing that are really bringing people together both in regions and across the state. And this is really one of the most important things that we think you can be doing right now, and that is connecting with one another. You know, I just leave the little script here for a minute, and I'm going to say that I think one thing I'm becoming increasingly aware of in terms of what school leaders like you need is the kind of support that really comes from one another. And I don't mean just the people in your district who are your colleagues who you work with every day, and I'm sure you already get support from, but I mean connecting with other colleagues outside of your district. And this is one good way to do it. Just hearing, yeah, I'm feeling that way too. We're dealing with this too. We're not doing it perfectly either. That is a really, really important thing to be doing right now. So we hope that these kinds of get-togethers, these virtual get-togethers, bring you together as folks who are in a region together, in this case, or across the state. And, I'll say we have some excellent things coming up statewide along these same lines too, that we'll, learn more about as we go along. But just being here is a really good thing. So we hope you enjoy the short time that we have, because we found that this time goes really, really fast. I want to thank Tony. I'm so glad to see you out there, Tony Cardamone, for both the initial idea for this regional series and the help in planning this 3-part regional series. If you were able to attend the first one on December 15th, that one was with one of our SANES attorneys, Jen Carlson, who really has all the nuts and bolts and good stuff with regard to negotiations and furloughs and leaves and all of that fun stuff. So that was a really well attended and very well received workshop. And I believe it is taped somewhere. So if you didn't get to see Jen and you have some interest in that kind of topic, we can find a way for you to see it. Just let me know and we'll do that. Today's topic, of course, is an important one for all of you and every member of your school community, your teachers, your parents, your families, your custodians, every single person in your school community. Whether you are a new school leader or a seasoned school leader, one thing we know is that nothing could have prepared you for the events of the past year and the challenges that you're dealing with over the current school year. There's no set of instructions, there's no playbook, and there's no wisdom of the ages, right? There's really not a big institutional memory for how to be a school leader in a pandemic when everything is remote and everybody's going crazy. At least I haven't seen it. So you are pretty much left with dealing all that and doing it all both professionally and personally. And the stress and strain of that is tremendous. We all hear that saying sometimes, the airplane saying, when we're on the plane, we have to put on our own mask first so we can help those who need us, our children, etc. We've got to take care of ourselves first so we can take care of others. That's kind of a little platitude, easier said than done. But one thing we know is that taking care of your school communities and learning strategies that could help you and that can filter down to be ones that they can use too. And that's really the crux of where we're going to go with Amy today. Some strategies that work not just for us, but we can share with our school communities and they can use with students and families. That's a pretty good thing. So in this workshop, we're going to focus not only on your own wellness, but strategies you can use with staff to help with students to build a culture of wellness in your school. We're going to ask you, as always, please post a lot, post questions, anything that comes into your head, thoughts, comments, suggestions, things that you're trying and are kind of sort of working or not working. We would love to share that. So without further delay, I have to tell you that when I thought about who might be very well suited to share her expertise and experience with us, that was kind of an easy question for me to answer, because in her position as project director for the Mental Health Association of New York State, MHANYS, MHANYS, Amy Molloy works with schools, districts, and school leaders on a very regular basis to promote mental health and wellness across the entire community, to students, to families and staff, as well as to you, our school leaders. She gets the whole picture. Amy is a great partner of SANES who has joined me on SANES Connect panels since the very first one, April 1st of last year, when the topic was looking for missing children as soon as schools closed. And she's been helping us ever since. So I can't say enough how much we appreciate you, Amy. So please help me in welcoming Amy Molloy. Amy.
Thank you so much, Karen. That's so nice. Who imagined that we'd still be kind of here in this space almost a year later from April? I certainly know I wasn't thinking that way at the time. So thank you so much for the invitation to participate. And I really just want to reiterate, I think that all of you are here because you're looking to learn something. And I hope that you leave here having learned something. But I also am a true believer that you probably have something to give and offer as well. So at any point, drop something in the chat if you have a great idea, if you have something that's worked for you. I think that's really, really important. So if you're not familiar, the Mental Health Association in New York State, we're a statewide not-for-profit. There actually isn't one in Onondaga County right now, but I know we do have them in Rochester and Monroe and Genesee, Orleans. So maybe that part covers parts of your regions, I'm not sure. Most of our work has been in education and awareness to kind of raise an understanding of mental health and reduce stigma, and a lot of policy work. So one of the things that we did do was advocate for mental health instructions in schools. And so we were really pleased that when that law passed, that we then had the opportunity to create the resource center and provide support to schools so that you have the tools and resources that you need. I am probably a little biased, but I'm really glad that we have that in New York State, because I think as we approached this pandemic and this turn to remote work, schools had been talking for quite some time at that point about mental health, about social emotional learning. And I think it put us probably in a little bit better position maybe than some other places to deal with the challenges that have gone along with that. Aside from the Resource Center, I'm also a school board member. So I kind of look at school districts through that lens as well. I have 3 kids. My youngest is a sophomore in college. So we're through school, but had great experiences. So appreciate the work that all of you do and hope that I can help you today. I want to kind of start off just by framing the conversation. Karen and I were talking, a lot about where we would go with this, and I'm going to ask you to kind of almost take a step back and think about this from the perspective of how you work with your students. So we know that schools are doing a great job of taking a look at how can we best support the mental health and wellness of our students. And in doing that, I think we sometimes forget about ourselves. I think it's because we're caregivers and because we have a lot on our plate. And so that, oxygen mask that Karen talked about kind of gets forgotten. But really the kind of things that I'm going to talk about today are the same things that you probably think about when you're supporting your students. How do we build social connections? How do we provide opportunities for people, ourselves and our students and our staff to practice coping strategies? So I think in a way that'll hopefully help us kind of frame the conversation that it's nothing really new or different than what we are probably already talking about, but it's easy for us, I think, more so to talk about it with respect to how do we support our students rather than how do we support ourselves. So that's where I kind of ask you to kind of be in that space a little bit today.
Thank you, Amy. So let's start with us. Okay, we want to put our mask on first. So what kinds of things do you recommend school leaders do to take care of themselves? And once again, I really want to ask anyone who's listening, feel free to just throw up some little strategies. Don't feel that it's too small or something to put up there. Those are precisely the kinds of ones that sometimes make the biggest difference. So what will help our school leaders now who are really, really facing tremendous stress?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to get into that, I would like to engage us in a couple different things. We have some polls and we have some icebreaker kinds of activities. And I'm going to start with that. I think kind of as an answer to your question. So here for a moment, it's going to take me a second, but I'm going to share my screen. And the first thing that I'm going to pull up is an icebreaker. And I share this with you as a means of answering your question, because one of the things that we have been doing, even in our own offices, is just trying to find ways to connect. Because and I know many of your staff, some of your staff are probably in person, so you're not dealing with that whole remote thing for everyone, but we're all social distancing. So whereas we used to kind of get up and walk down the hall and talk with someone, or, you know, stop into someone's office and vent at the end of a day, I imagine there's a little bit less of that happening, because there's just a lot less social interaction. And so I'm going to ask you all to take part in this icebreaker activity. And this is one example that we've used for our staff. It's something that you might be able to use like at the beginning of a meeting or something. I'm realizing now that I can't probably see the chat when I do this, or maybe I can. Here we go. I got it. I found it. So this is kind of something we created. The question is, how would family, friends, and colleagues describe you? So it's kind of like a boggle game. So the only rule is that you can use a letter more than once. They don't have to be touching, but go ahead and put your answer in the chat box. How would your friends and colleagues describe you using these letters? And I actually, weirdly, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Let me go back. I can't see the chat when I share my screen. It might be the way I'm sharing my screen, but Karen, can you see the chat? Can you read me some of the answers?
Let me check it out. Yes, I can see the chat and I will read you some of the answers.
I work with a lot of young staff right now, so I'm pretty sure they might describe me as old.
I don't think so.
Oh, they're really young.
Here are some words that are coming in. Give you a little sampler here. Cares, caring, social, understanding. Wow, that person must be a really good Scrabble player. I'd like to play online. You put that together really fast. Understanding, cares, senior, AKA old, busy, steady, care,
I like steady.
fun.
That's good.
That's great.
All right, I'm
Listener.
gonna pop out of there. Oh,
Values, love. And Stephanie said, I love this idea. Thank you, Stephanie.
thank you, Stephanie. With that, I'll stop sharing. So it's just one idea of something that, you know, you could do as part of a faculty meeting, or just in the morning, throw it in, you know, some kind of Google Doc and ask people to participate. I just wanted to kind of start off there. The other thing I think is really important, and again, this takes me sort of back to where we are with students, is really paying attention to those social emotional learning skills. And so one of the first things that we often look at is how can we help kids recognize their feelings, identify their feelings, name their feelings. So I'm going to share a poll with you. And the first poll question is, what are some of the biggest stressors in your personal and professional life? So again, this speaks to that whole social emotional learning skill of self-awareness. So what for you are some of the biggest stressors? And you can choose two.
Amy, will they be able to answer this right on the poll, or do they
I think,
post it?
yes, you should be able to. Yeah, there we go. I see
Okay.
some.
Okay.
No, there's only 12 of you, so we can see, you know,
Yeah.
if people aren't answering. But it is anonymous. Yeah. I'll just give a couple more seconds, see if we can get closer. This is great. All right, so I'm going to end the poll.
And if you found yourself checking all of the above, don't feel bad.
Yeah. And now I'm sharing the results. Can you all see that?
Yes.
The two biggest ones were student behavior, lack of motivation and progress, and time management at home school, which I would imagine kind of goes a little bit hand in hand. How can you do the things that you need to do if time is an issue? And that might result in a lack of progress. Here's another question for you. I do not want to do that. Let's see. I'm going to end that poll. I'm going to go to the next one. And this speaks again to self-awareness. When you're feeling stressed, what do you notice? Because all of us experience stress differently. It may be set up to only let you choose one. You can always drop in your second choice into the chat if you'd like. I'm going to give it a moment and then I'm going to end the poll and share the results. Okay, so most of you, 50% of you, half of you, said that you feel angry, irritable, or impatient. Others talked about difficulty sleeping. So this is, I think, really interesting because this comes up a lot. And I think one of the things that really, I guess, was kind of like an aha moment for me is that so many people experience stress in this way. But when we see stress being presented from someone else, whether it's a person, someone we work with, a coworker, or a family member, or a child, we see it. We don't recognize it as stress at first. They're mean, they're angry, they're misbehaving if it's a young person. And so I think it's really interesting that it tends to be how so many of us acknowledge that we present with stress, but when we see it in other people, our first thought isn't, oh, they're stressed. And that might be a little bit of an overgeneralization. And then difficulty sleeping, which is huge. How important sleep is. We know how important it is for kids. It's super important for us as well. And then the last one I'm just going to ask you is, what is your personal strategy? So what do you rely on most to improve your own mental and physical health?
And if it's something else, please post in the chat.
Yep. Or if you can only choose one, you can post the other one in the chat. Give it another second. And I'll share the results with you. Physical exercise seems to be the big one for everyone. So just reflecting back on these and going back to the question that Karen asked, how can school leaders take care of themselves so they can take care of others? The first thing is recognizing what you need and how to recognize when you're feeling stressed. So it's great that you participated in that. I encourage you to think about that as you go through the day. If you're finding yourself angry and irritable, is it stress? If you are having difficulty sleeping, is it stress? It's just a good thing to kind of keep our own sort of internal temperature. But the other piece of this is that when you see these same things in the people that you're sort of charged with taking care of, whether that's the students or your own family members, or if it's your colleagues, it can give you some sort of indication of where everyone is feeling. And then the last is that these kinds of things are really hard to get in school. And in your work day. I mean, I don't know about you, you all probably spend more time walking around schools than I do, but I know that right now I feel like trapped at my desk constantly. And as much as I might try to say, today I'm going to go for a walk at lunch, or I'm going to, go down to because I'm working from home, I should be able to hop down in my basement and lift weights for 15 minutes. And I say I'm going to do it every single day, but something comes up and it doesn't happen. So are you getting what you need during the course of the day? And it might not come during the course of your school day. It may come at night, but that becomes a big question. Like, are we getting it? And how do we just like schedule it into our workday? Again, going back to kind of this idea of what students need too. If what you need is physical exercise, it's very possible that what students need is physical exercise, what your teachers need is physical exercise. And how do you find a way to bring that into the day so that you're all benefiting from that? I think is kind of maybe the way to look at it. I have a colleague who says work smarter, not harder. So if there's something that I need, it's very possible someone else needs it too. How can we get it in such a way structured so that we're all getting it, if that makes sense?
Amy, one of the words that came up in one of the earlier poll questions that you put up there was, I believe it came up, mindset. And I think that's a word that we hear very, very clearly lately. And I can say that we hear from school leaders, who are saying that it's kind of trying to shift their own mindset, like it's really an inside job, right? Trying to shift your own mindset from, I have to do everything, I'm responsible for everything, I can't possibly do everything, and I'm doing a not good job at anything. I think a lot of us, a lot of educators, teachers, and school leaders are feeling that they're working harder than ever, but doing a not very good job at anything. And that's a very defeating kind of feeling, right? So one thing that some folks that we work with, and some of them are actually in connection with the mentoring program and our mentors themselves, talk about this shift of mindset. So kind of coming to understand that you don't have to do everything and you can't do everything, and you are doing remarkably well under the hand of cards that you are currently playing. So really kind of that internal self-talk is important. And one of our other principals, Felicia Thomas Williams in Brentwood, talked about mindset and how she used that with staff. And she said that before the school year started, she was ready to crack around the end of August. She's a middle school principal. And she said that one of the things that was really doing her in was the constant barrage from the grown-ups, constant barrage of questions, sometimes really particular, specific, little detail-oriented questions. Lots of questions bombarding her that were expected. It was expected that she would have answers for them, and many of them did not have answers, and that she would be able to give those answers and then fix the problems associated with them. That was really getting her to the point she said she was ready to crack. She's our middle school principal. She's our principal of the year. Okay, so that's comforting. And she said that her moment was when she said that what she had to share with her staff was going to be their mantra for the year, and it has continued to be, is we've got this. That was it. We've got this. So her whole talk to herself and to her staff, message-wise, consistent, is, look, somehow we're going to work together. We've got this. We're not going to do it perfectly. We're not always going to do it right, nor will we know what's always coming. We're going to work together, and in our way, we're going to keep kids safe and ourselves healthy. We've got this. And somehow she had to stream down this bombardment of effort to answer a million small detail-oriented questions that have no answers to some kind of approach that was calming. And she and some others have said that was helpful. So I'm wondering if maybe in your conversations with school leaders, when you talk about mindset, what kinds of things do you think are important?
It's, and it's interesting as you were saying that, a couple of things came to mind. One was there was a speaker once, and the topic was actually about anxiety, and how a big sort of trigger, so to speak, or feeder of anxiety is this need to be perfectionist. And they related it to a mindset, but talked about, like, it doesn't have to be 100%. Like, some days we don't bring 100%, and that's okay. It's just kind of about bringing our best selves in that moment, and giving grace for not quite being 100% all the time. So I think mindset, optimism is huge, right? So being able to create some sense of optimism and positivity, and hope. And I think in every building, you have those people. We have on our team, we have this one person, I refer to her as a cheerleader, because when we're doing whatever we're doing,
Yep.
she's, in the chat, like praising everybody. And we need that. So
Yep.
I think that some of it too is knowing who those folks are in your building
Yep.
and how to leverage what they do. It kind of goes to even that whole like mentoring and coaching kind of relationship. I think there are people who are really just good at that. And how do we leverage them and bring them into the fold, and maybe provide an opportunity for them to boost everybody else up. It is definitely mindset. Not everybody has it either. And I think that's okay. I think it's hard for some people to really get to that wellness mindset, but it's very much like a growth mindset, which you all talk about with students.
Yep. Anxiety is rampant, not only in schools, but in the world around us, of course. And that all sticks to us, even if it was a more normal year pandemic wise. And so that mindset piece is very important. Let's take a look at a couple of comments here. It's interesting that Kelly and Stephanie are kind of on the same page. They are fans, as am I, of making lists and crossing things off. It's such a good feeling. Kelly, do you want to comment on that? Tell us about your list, Kelly.
Sure. Actually, I type that, which in the short version, but what I really like to do is make, I'm a Post-it note person. And there is something very cathartic about crumpling it up and throwing it in the garbage can.
Yes.
And so I do find that I deal with stress and anxiety in that way. I will make lists. I will, and put my Post-it notes everywhere. And then the more that I throw away as I finish them, the better I feel. And the other piece to that wasn't really on the survey for handling stress, in terms of some of the options, I have a tendency sometimes to almost, instead of socialize, I do the opposite. I really isolate to a certain extent. And especially at work. And this is not necessarily super popular, but when I'm really stressed, I sometimes find that walking around the building, all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, look, there she is. Let's tell her about something else that's not working. And so I need to maybe take a day where I only talk to kids. I only talk to kids, or maybe I just make short appearances. But when I'm really stressed, I can't do the lap. I can't always do the faculty room because it's just everybody else is also stressed. And I think that sometimes people forget that, I'm stressed, and then they throw it all on me. And I don't have a Post-it note for that. So.
All right, we're on to something good here. How about Stephanie? Let's look at this list piece for a minute. Is there anything you'd like to comment on or add to Kelly's comments? Kelly likes Post-it notes. Stephanie, anything you want to add about your penchant for lists?
So yeah, I too use Post-it notes, and I keep a daily log electronically because I'm kind of old-fashioned in the way that I need to have a journal or a book or something hard copy in front of me. But I do keep everything electronically so I can access it no matter where I am. But I will have sticky notes of my day, and then I'll literally take it and put it into my journal, my electronic journal, and I'll toss away the sticky note because okay, I did that. But I also keep a list, and there is something therapeutic for me about literally crossing it off the list. Like it makes, even if I've added that day 4 things onto the list, if I just cross off the one, it just feels better that, okay, I got one thing off my list. But so yeah, I guess a little bit in the same respect.
Is a lot of it a visual for both of you? Like kind of the visual of like seeing a pile of crumpled up Post-it notes and seeing things crossed off. Is it that sort of visual?
I think so. And I think, for me, when I'm stressed, I feel like I'm spinning my wheels. I'm not getting anything done. So to have those Post-it notes crumpled up or things crossed off, it makes you just feel like you have a sense of accomplishment.
Now, is there anybody out there who really is more anti-list? Because I've heard people say, I'm not one of them, but I've heard people say, nothing makes me more stressed than making a list, because the day goes and the list is just as long as it was in the morning and more things add to it. Any anti-listers out there who feel the need to speak up, feel free. Okay. You know, we're all different, right? What
Mhm.
works for me might not work for you. Personally, maybe you're like me. I find great comfort in charts. Charts bring order to a disordered universe for me. If I can make it into a chart, I'm good, but that's just me. So you probably have some of these little strategies, whether it's the crumpled up post-it notes, the visual list, you name it, the list on your phone that are helpful, and that's a good thing. But let's hear a few more comments that are coming in. And I found this one particularly interesting, and this is from Tony. So Tony, I'd like you to comment. Tony says, how do you respond to the term toxic positivity? It seems some teachers look at the positivity from a leader principle in this way. What's he so happy about? How do you balance understanding teacher stressors with being positive, that balance? Tony,
Mhm.
speak to the question a little bit.
You want Tony to speak or?
Tony, yeah, just speak to your question a little bit. Unmute. There you go.
Okay,
You're good.
sorry, it was, everyone was frozen.
You're not quite coming through.
I don't know if you've heard that term before, toxic positivity, but
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Can you hear
We're a
me
little
now? I'm sorry.
better, I think. Yeah, I think it's just
Okay.
our
Can you-
internet. I don't think
okay.
it's you.
Okay. Some of the teachers have said, like, when a principal's like, we've got this, or we're in this together, it's termed toxic positivity. I've seen it on
Mm.
Twitter, those kind of things, and I wasn't
Yep.
sure if you've heard of that or you've dealt with that.
I wonder if what's really happening is just, and I don't know for sure, but a sense of sometimes people not being heard, and so or feeling like they're not heard. And I think that as you all know, in a building, sometimes it only takes one person, right, to not feel like either they're being heard or not happy with the way things are going, and it creates this kind of environment where that blows out of kind of a little bit out of control. I and I I wonder if positivity sometimes needs to come from the staff themselves and maybe a leader. And this is where I kind of go back from the idea of like almost a peer kind of environment. And schools are doing mentoring and coaching, so you already have an understanding of what this is. But for maybe that kind of positivity or mindset adjustment to come from within the staff rather than from a leader. I don't know, you may have a different response, but I think I don't know if anybody else has heard that.
Amy, this is a good opportunity to kind of broaden our conversation a little bit to ways to incorporate wellness tools into the fabric of school for students and staff. And I know when we spoke, you had some great suggestions about things like peer support groups that you have seen some districts develop and maybe supported them in developing. So how about something like peer support groups, both for school leaders, for school leaders and for their school communities?
Yeah. So we have on our website, we have highlighted it in this little segment we call School Shorts. And I forgot to give Michelle that link, so I'll send it afterwards. But Wheatland Chili, which I don't know if it's in your region or not, it's around Rochester, but they did something, and actually they partnered with the University of Rochester Medical Center, but Peaceful Schools, who's hosting this, does something very similar. And what they did was they facilitated what they called community building circles at the beginning of school. And I really loved this idea because for those of you who use restorative practices or responsive classroom, you're familiar with circles and morning meetings, things of that nature, that kind of structure, that kind of opportunity. Well, what Wheatland Chili did was they provided an opportunity for their staff to participate in circles. They called them community building circles at the beginning of school. And that provided an opportunity for people to express their concerns, to express their hopes for the school year. And if you get a chance to listen, they can tell you so much better than I can, but it seemed to be really successful and it provided that opportunity. Peaceful Schools facilitated some virtual circles for us back in December. between November and December. And we had great feedback. It was just an opportunity for people to talk about how they were feeling. And that's why I kind of wondered about just people needing to be heard. And I think sometimes we think we're providing opportunities for them to be heard, but it was more about just having a structure there and in place. So something like that engages peers. So these circles were not facilitated by someone from the outside. They were not facilitated by school leaders. They were facilitated by peers, so that they had the opportunity to kind of be in the same sort of level field and feel like they had this opportunity to be heard. I thought that was a great strategy. I think your wellness teams are also another great place to maybe bring some of these ideas that you might have into the fold. So whether it's your wellness committee or the advisory council that is created as part of the comprehensive developmental school counseling program, these teams are focused on social emotional learning. They're focused on culture and climate. They're focused on wellness. And so, but they include staff. And so having it be staff led or peer led seems like, such a little thing, but it can make a really big difference where it comes from.
Does anybody have any suggestions if you're using any kind of circle format with any of your school communities, or maybe even if you're not doing it that formally or calling it that, also how you're tapping into the resources within your school communities? I think, Amy, I think you mentioned things like your wellness chair, if you have one in your district, your district health advisory committee, if there's something like that in your district. Is anyone thinking of any examples of those kinds of systems or positions that are in place in your district that you're already finding to be helpful?
There's one in the chat that I think is kind of a great example. 5 elementary principals using one another's support. I'm interested, did that happen organically, or was it something that, an idea that someone had and said, let's do this?
So during the summer, when we were going through a number of transitions and COVID just being one of them, we ended up reaching out, and we found that working together, it was a survival technique, because we all had questions. We were all trying to figure stuff out. We all had a lot of the same type of duties or communications to work with each of our buildings. We hadn't previously been as close or as coordinated as we have been now. And I think it really has been kind of that silver lining that's really helped us get through with things together. As a matter of fact, and we've got a group chat that we use. We're probably meeting sometime tomorrow, just to kind of go over some things. We've got a new thing on our plate. We've got to try to figure it out and coordinate our own staff. How's it working in my building versus their building? And I think the sharing out of ideas has been incredibly helpful. And I would absolutely say that this group has drawn closer together now than ever before.
Great. Could you see that happening with other staff? Like, do you think that would work if it were, among school nurses or among elementary teachers?
I do think so. I know that initially in the spring, when we were all kind of, out, and we had our teaching staff working across the entire grade level of a district, working together to create math and ELA instruction for our students. I think that started it. They really appreciated and could see and garner appreciation for teachers in other buildings that they didn't typically work with before. They weren't really sure about, I didn't really know that person and so forth. I think it's been helpful. Some of the grade levels have continued to do that, even now with our some of the remote instruction. I think it helped some. I don't think it was as pervasive or continued as much as I think we thought that it would.
I think one of the challenges could be sometimes is that people aren't sure how to provide that kind of support in a peer, like, in a relationship, that it could become either a venting kind of a session or something like that. And then is that helpful for everyone? I thought it was interesting. I think it was Chick said, school leaders creating opportunities for staff to be and act positively, kind of morale strategies. It almost sounds like a community learning project to me. Is that what you were thinking of, Chick?
Well, yeah, I would think so. It just seems like a theme throughout so many of these conversations since last March have been around the term isolation.
Mm.
And I was thinking originally for principals, as Mary said, she finds comfort and strength in working as a team. And if you have that opportunity, I think definitely school leaders can benefit. But I was thinking of within schools, how can principals support their teachers without having all the answers? Because we don't have all the answers. And we're not going to have all the answers because this is a time of such uncertainty. So for example, does it make any sense to bring people together and structure the conversation so that people talk about things that are happening that are good? What's happening that's working? How do you do this? Because I'm not quite sure how to. The principal might act as more of a facilitator rather than a sage, because probably teachers can figure out the answers to most of their own questions. So I'm thinking those kinds of things where the focus is on what's working, as well as perhaps actual strategies that improve staff morale with both kids and teachers.
Thank you.
Every
Yeah,
year
one thing
schools.
one thing I was struck by, Mary, when you were speaking, the way you and I think 5 other elementary principals felt early on in this experience, just, we better lock arms here and really be there for each other, because that's really important. And that's such a good thing. Sometimes some of our listeners are from really small districts, and that's hard. I was in a huge Shenandoah where I had my core of colleagues around me all the time, and we locked arms. We, all of us, middle school principals, you name it. We were together. We trusted each other. We were a support group. Went down to a teeny weeny little school down in Westchester where I'm the only one of this and you're the only one of that, or smaller schools in our state. One person does K-8, one person does K-12 in some of our districts and drives the bus. So strategies that you would share with folks who are from really small districts where we don't have that great benefit of other colleagues around us as much as we would like to. Are there any Twitter groups? Are there hashtags? We did an AP series. Kristen Lennon McMahon last week met with a huge group of assistant principals in another region. And she said, meet me on hashtag AP chat. She told them where it was, when it's on, how they could get in there and kind of share things. And already we've heard from some new assistant principals in small districts. Wow, I feel like I have a group now. It was just a matter of finding that one particular chat. So any other ideas about how to connect if you don't have the good thing of a lot of colleagues around you in your district? Any thoughts about that from Amy or anyone else?
I did see a few Facebook groups when I was kind of doing some research recently. And I think one was from ASCD, if I remember correctly. I'll see if I can find that link and I'll share it with Michelle.
That would be great. Back to, we kind of put the question out there about using resources in your district. Molly, can you just share some of the resources in your district, some of the positions that are particularly helpful in kind of focusing on areas around wellness?
Sure. And just actually, before I do that, I'll just throw out too, I think I'm from a smaller district where I'm the only high school principal. We have one of each.
Yeah.
our regional BOCES has been awesome this year. Our principals groups. We don't,
Great point.
3 or 4 times a year, we're meeting almost, throughout the summer, we met every week, and it was really just to talk and listen. We constantly are emailing. If we have a question, we throw it out to the whole
Yeah.
group. It's been a huge support just to talk to people in similar positions in your region. OCM's been great. We've been really doing well, staying connected that way. And then the position in our district 3 years
Yeah.
ago, hired a mental health coordinator. It's someone we contract with actually that has come in to coordinate all of the pieces related to SEL and mental health. She doesn't necessarily see and service students, but she really helps all of our counselors, our nurses, our SRO, kind of brings us all together and gives us that guidance. And has started, to bring in some different interns that are able to start some of these support groups and really just take leadership on, like the SEL program that we had to roll out this year as part of the reopening plan. They're starting the biweekly faculty support groups. So having that one person that really kind of oversees and has that umbrella position has been a huge asset to our district. They work with administration, central office to kind of initiate ideas and then roll it out, or just as a reference for, bringing in education, outside sources to linkage with our county. It's been a tremendous position, and it's been super helpful this year.
Thank you. One thing too that seems actually like a benefit of the time that we're in now is that folks have mentioned that they used to have to go out of their building to go to middle school principal groups at BOCES, et cetera. And that's always tough, as we all know, because it's hard to leave your building, even in regular times. But now they're connecting so much more with middle school principal groups in their region because they are doing it virtually. They don't have to leave their office. They can do it, over lunch or while they're still in their building. So Chick is exactly right. This is the theme. Isolation is probably one of the worst things that we can face right now. So anything or any suggestions all of you have about how we better connect with one another and most especially support one another is really key. I just want to, Bonnie is kind of thinking along the same line I was. Bonnie, just kind of mention how maybe particularly the circles, how they key into some of the things that folks are talking about here.
Well, they're just like what Mary said. So let's just quote Mary. So what we found on both pre-COVID and even more so into COVID was how people have problems of practice, and they're all very, in some ways, similar. So the problem solving around how to solve some of those is iterative and generative. More things come out of that group because you're tapping into the wisdom of the group. So they work in 3, 4, 5, or 6 in a small group, and they meet one-to-one with a mentor coach, and then they also meet in group over a period of like 10 weeks. So there might be something like, well, I can't get my observations in. There's just not time. I don't have enough staff to stay open. And someone else may say that too. Then you're not alone with the problem. You're sitting in the problem with others who bring other resources and expertise. And the trust that is interwoven between those people is sustaining over time. And then they start to, as others have said, they email back one another, they Twitter to one another. And as that trust in that group with that mentor coach grows, the resiliency of our mentees that have been working with us grows. And that spills over into their wellness over time. That's what we've heard. We've even brought some of our mentees in from different districts, different regions, and some what we call supersized conversations, where they are sharing some of this with even some folks that they've never met before, but feel a kindred spirit to. So, does that answer your question, Karen?
Yeah, we just because it's very similar to what folks were talking about, and I think an important point, Bonnie, and one that you kind of touched upon is in that group, whether it's Mary's group of elementary principals that are her real colleagues in the district, or in a mentorship circle or some other kind of extended meeting with regional middle school principals through BOCES. Sometimes, we as school leaders, we tend to be fixers by nature. We hear a problem and we're thinking how we're going to fix it. It's our responsibility to fix it. And sometimes the sharing is enough. Sometimes the relief that comes with that and the reassurance is good. So, we really hear, Kelly, what you said earlier. We can so identify, if I walk out in that hall, I'm going to come back with 10 more Post-it notes stuck to me about 10 more things I have to do. So I'm not going out there. So anybody else too, a little strategy. This is the real deal. This is, anything that you do, or Amy, that you can suggest when we do just walk out into that hallway, whether it's a virtual one or not, and it starts what Felicia talks about, the incoming, the bombardment of things that are coming our way with an expectation. How do we kind of calm that down a little bit?
Karen,
How do we calm that down? Or Bonnie or Amy or anyone? Bonnie.
just a quick little tip. Apologize for just jumping in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Something that is so we don't think about, and that is when somebody wants to stick their sticky notes to us.
Yeah.
Sometimes just asking a simple question like, what do you want? Oftentimes they just want to be heard. They don't always want you to fix the problem because it's their problem. And sometimes as fixers, we feel we have to jump in. Sometimes it's just, tell me what you want from this. And at least, sometimes they say, I just want you to know. Okay.
Just want you to know.
I think going back to the sort of culture and climate piece, I think whenever we can build some of these wellness strategies into the structure of the day, the structure of the classroom. I shared with Michelle a couple other resources. We have a virtual wellness room on our website, and we partnered with Peaceful Schools to create a series of mindful moments videos. So all of those are just examples of resources. The internet is full of like YouTube videos where you could just practice breathing. I think that it's really what a lot of us are needing in our day when we're feeling overwhelmed, is just to have those few moments. And you as leaders have the ability to encourage that either in the classroom or as part of the school day, to incorporate those kinds of activities. And we're kind of running late on time. I actually had pulled up a YouTube video just for us to kind of practice it, but they're everywhere. And so it really just, encourage you. It could be just that and I think this is where I always hesitate. I don't want it to sound like you all have to do this, but you have your district health advisory committees, you have your school nurses, you have your champions of mental health and wellness. And sometimes that's a health teacher and sometimes it's a school psychologist, but you have those people who are really interested and sort of thrive in being able to do this, but to share those kinds of resources with one another. Maybe it is, as a group, just meeting Monday morning in the gym or something to go through one of those mindful moments videos if someone wants to come into school 10 minutes early, or use your community resources. And I say this, as a board member, and I've been involved in PTAs too. Your PTAs really want to support staff, and your communities sometimes have people who are willing to do something to give back to their schools. So reaching out, there's another thing I shared with Michelle is we created this whole list of Teacher Appreciation Week resources a couple years ago. We're kind of recycling them now because I think we don't want to wait till Teacher Appreciation Week to do these things. But there is a PDF that talks about the things that you can do in that week, but we also gave some ideas and examples of how each month you could kind of recognize something different. So one like focuses on nutrition and one focused on reading, and you'd have to take a look at it. But the idea being that there's places to involve your PTA and your community resources to help bring these supports, these self-care coping strategies into school for you, for your staff. And then again, if you can build those into the structure, your students are going to benefit from them, your staff's going to benefit from them, you're going to benefit from them, whether it's a sensory hallway or a few mindful moments or yoga at the end of the day, whatever it might be. And I know some of these things are harder because of social distancing and remote learning, but how do we build those coping strategies into our day so that people aren't feeling as charged up as they are, so that when you're walking down the hall, they're telling you what's wrong. We want to make everyone just kind of feel a little bit more comfortable and practice those self-coping strategies.
Absolutely. Before we do start to run out of time, I just want to ask Michelle, we see that in the chat bar, you posted Amy's resources. And if everyone can look at the chat bar, in that link, there's a wealth of resources from MHANYS that are all at your disposal. Michelle, I just want to ask you, when this webinar ends, where will that link be for people to use, or can we send it to them?
Sure. Let me show you all. So if you go to SANYS.org, PD and mentoring, online learning is right here, and you'll see this event is right here, and I'll embed the recording of this video right in here as well. So just go to
Thank you.
SANYS
So
PD
it will be
mentoring.
right on our website.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And also, I'd remind people, you can go to that website and you can click on SANYS Connect. All of the resources from the 16 SANYS Connect panels that we did, including ones about mental health and wellness, are there. It is a treasure chest. You can look by topic, and then the resource lists. Thank you so much, Michelle, for having this so well organized and available to us. It is all there on our website. You just have to kind of know where to look for it. So we are going to wrap up. Chick, how about you share your wonderful suggestion that came up here in the chat bar? Chick, you there?
I think he left. He dropped it and then he left.
Why? Okay, because I think he went to get a glass of wine, because he had a wonderful comment that's something like, and don't forget the wine, which we wholeheartedly agree with. So anyway, back to Amy. Just kind of wrap us up here and give us a good parting thought.
Oh, good parting thoughts. Well, I think that you all know what needs to be done, honestly. Whatever you're doing to support your students, because you're doing it, do the same to support yourself, support your staff. And if you can do it all at once, then you're working smarter, not harder. So however you can build those self-care coping strategies into the climate and culture of your school, into the daily structure, is going to support all of you, both leaders and staff and students. And it sounds really simple. Protective factors are the best protective factors are building those social connections and building those opportunities to practice coping strategies. And you all have talked quite a bit about those.
Thank you. And thank you so much for being here today. And I think we would all agree, don't forget the funny, okay? And I'm going to give you all two resources, all right? Jerry Brooks, Jerry the Principal. If you don't know Jerry the Principal and his videos, you're missing something, the principal, okay? He puts it in perspective for you. You will laugh every day. Who's going to say I'm right? Tony, do you know? Do you know Jerry the Principal? All right. Okay. Also, I'll give you one more name. These are the videos I watch every day. Jerry the Principal and Bob Marley. No relation to Reggae Bob. No relation. Bob Marley is a Maine comedian from Maine, M-A-I-N-E. He says his name Bobby. He's Bobby, all right? He has put on a video clip every day since this pandemic started. It's like 2 minutes long. He just sits there and he shares his thoughts of the day. Priceless. Look up Bob Marley, Maine comedian. You'll feel better. You'll laugh every day. Don't forget to laugh and don't forget to connect. Thanks all a lot for being here. By the way, we'll be back on, when will we be back? March 11th. And on that day, we're going to have a free-ranging, provocative conversation. And I'll have some funny videos to throw in. But anyway, we're going to have a conversation with your region about, we're going to look at this year that's kind of winding towards spring at that point, and we're going to look back a little bit, we're going to look ahead a little bit, and we're just going to kind of gather some real thoughts, like the real kind that you wouldn't want to share anywhere but like on video with 10 million people across the universe. So it's really going to be fun. So I hope you come back March 11th. I really can't say enough of how appreciative I am. Bonnie, thank you so much for coming to talk about all the good things that mentoring is doing right now. Michelle, as always, for getting us to this point, up and running today. And Amy, for every time you're able to join us and be here with us. It's just always so good. So we thank you. We thank everyone for being here, especially you, Tony. This was great. We'll see you all again soon. Look at the Sandy's website because we have other good stuff coming up. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Everybody take care. Keep connecting. Follow Chick's advice. Okay. 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 Bye. Have a good night.
Good night.